different things, and you don't know really, is this one of those fake news, I mean, that you can't really take for credibility purposes, seriously, or, what is that? So, I like how you, in your writings, though, how you do intertwine the offbeat different places with the paranormal in your second book and everything like that. So you've been kind of researching the paranormal since you were like 10 years old. So what got you interested at such an early age, I guess?
Well, I know it sounds cliche to go, oh, I grew up in a haunted house, but my house, well, first off, I'm the youngest of 3 kids, and I've got a brother and sister who are like 7 years older and 10 years older. So some things started happening in my house, and I just knew that, if I told them what was going on, they were just, well, actually, when I did, I kind of got oh, you have such a good, imagination.
Imagination. Oh, yeah.
and
been labeled that, too.
Yeah, and I knew how it looked, even though I was a little kid, I was like, oh, I know how it looks. Yeah, right. But the thing was, it would only happen when I was alone. And I remember, like, the first time it happened, it was like the sunny afternoon, a Saturday or something. I think my parents they went to run errands, and I don't know, I was home alone for a little bit. And it would sound like there was this guest room we had, and it would sound like someone, I was a little kid, I know what it sounds like to jump up and down on the bed, because I'd done it when I wasn't supposed to, real distinct sound. I suddenly hear someone jumping up and down on the bed, just like really hard, like just boing, 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 just, they're going to break the mattress. But I know I'm all alone in the house. And this would go for maybe 5 minutes and then stop. And the first time, I don't think it did anything, but I got to the point where I would kick the door open and kind of yell, and I would, carry the cat in there with me and look around, and it would just, as soon as I opened the door, it would stop. So that just made no sense, and I didn't know who to talk to, so I went to the library, because that's what you did when I was growing up, and kind of discovered this whole paranormal world and started reading anything about anything unusual. I had a good librarian who pointed me in the right direction, and that's kind of how I got going on it all. Still never figured that out, but it got me started.
Wow. That, we all have something that triggers our interest in the paranormal, and when you said you were, small and, they would have said, oh, you've got a great imagination when you did tell people. That's what they said to me, too. I mean, I had a little friend that I considered to be my little friend that was with me a lot, and when I told someone about it, they were like, maybe that wasn't your imagination. You know what I mean? Like they want you to think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was actually spirits that you were seeing at a young age because of the, the ability, the empathic abilities and things like that. Maybe I did have more when I was younger and I was more open to it, because
before you feel like you have to. You don't feel like you have to label it yet when you're real little. You're just, this is what I see.
Right, and my mom, kind of, she had, she could see spirits and she had abilities as well. And so she wasn't real surprised when I would say I had a little friend or, something like that. She never, freaked out or kind of weirded out on me or nothing like that. She was very supportive all the time because she kind of, knew. My dad, on the other hand, kind of just wanted to not acknowledge it, like he was on the river of denial,
Yes.
So he didn't want to really acknowledge that. But you, when you're going to speak at, you're going to be at a couple of conferences this coming up with me, actually, which is pretty exciting. Yay. We'll talk about those in a minute. But, you said you've been fascinated by cemeteries since you were a little kid, too. So how did that come about? Because, you come up with a, book and stuff like that, too. I mean, you're working on one. And I wanted to kind of, how did that come about? How did the interest in the cemeteries?
Right. Yeah, I used to play in a cemetery with my friends when I was a little kid. And it was just kind of on our route. We had our little kind of the free range kid thing in the summer where we could just put a bunch of stuff and we could pack a lunch in our backpack and just be gone for several hours. And like I said, the cemetery was one of our favorite places to play because it had a few like mausoleum things, and we played some kind of macabre games where, you know, we pretend to be vampires or whatever, and they were just eerie. You know, it was good for our imagination. And we also knew to be really careful in the cemetery. I mean, every year I hear about someone who gets killed by a headstone. I don't know if you heard about that guy in Vermont a couple months ago. He got killed by his mother-in-law's headstone. It was one of those ones.
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't hear about that, but wow.
It was one of those, yeah. You hate to laugh, but it was apparently they didn't get along very well, and I don't know what he was saying. You know, it's just.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be cold, but what a way to go. You know, I mean, you already like cuss your mother most times. I love my mother-in-law. I'm just going to say that now, so if my wife's listening.
Me too.
I do love my mother-in-law, but some people do not. And for him to die by the headstone of his dead mother-in-law that he probably cussed every day, and even after she died, she probably got her last word. You know what I mean?
Exactly. She got her last words, and the most
exactly. You know how their mothers are about that last word.
Yes.
So.
Yes. So anyway, we knew like where the dangerous spots where you twist your ankle or trip over were. So that cemetery ended up kind of saving our butts one day because this creepy janitor tried to kidnap me and my friend, and he was chasing us, and he started chasing us in his car, and luckily we were like, oh, the cemetery at the same time. So we start running through the cemetery, and we knew how to zigzag through it, you know, and miss everything. Meanwhile, he had to get out of his car, and he's chasing us, and he's just like swearing and like he tripping over stuff and hitting his head. So after that, I even felt different. Like, man, the cemetery is a good place. It's like, you know, it's like a park where really serene park because hardly anyone's there. You generally have it to yourself, and
true that.
You know, and you can see, like here in Texas, it's the perfect place to see, you know, bluebonnets or anything, and also bird watching. It's a good thing. So, you know, and also now that I'm doing so much research, I end up out, you know, I'm always dragging my husband off to this or that cemetery because to me, they're like an open-air museum. And it's funny, you know, okay, you're surrounded by dead people, but they had lives. And when I'm there, it kind of brings history to life to me in a way that all the books don't. I go home and I just feel like, yeah, I know this, or I want to look up this person now. It's like you kind of feel this connection. So what I wanted was, you know, like I was saying, they're good for bird watching. I was looking for books, and every time we go to a bookstore, I kept looking for a bird guide, except it would be about cemetery symbolism. So I wanted a field guide to cemetery symbolism, and all the symbol books I could find. I mean, I've been buying every one I could find, but they're all huge coffee table books, and they go really into depth, you know. And I'm thinking, I just want one that someone can, you know, take in
their backpack,
or the backpack or the glove box. Flip it open so that when they're going, why is the hand? Here's an interesting thing. What does it mean when there's a hand holding a rosebud, you know, or why a rosebud broken off, or a picture or whatever? You could just flip through it, and so it'll have to be kind of alphabetical with lots of photos, and just, you know, oh, that's what that means. And then I think it'd be a really fun thing for people.
When we are at cemeteries, you know, like there was when we were at the Granbury Cemetery when we did the fundraiser out there, for the cops that were shot or whatever, we were out there doing the Jesse James thing, you know, and I really don't feel like he's out there, but maybe he is. Who knows what's there? But they were putting the coins on the deal, and you know, we were questioning what is that all about, you know. And then there are the other when we go to cemeteries and do different investigations, you know, just to kind of train we have 2 juniors, and we've taken them out to a couple of cemeteries just to start them off slow and train them on the equipment and how stuff does and how stuff works and how to be respectful and things like that. And when you're out there, Terry, and you're looking at some of these headstones, there are symbols on there that we are like, what in the hell does that mean? Or, you know, like the logging, the ones that are made look like trees or whatever that are logs, the logging guys, you know, and that they were woodsmen and stuff, which is so cool.
Of the world.
Yes, and it's just like, okay, so then, but there's certain symbols that, you know, we know what the Mason symbol looks like, you know what I mean? And we know that's a secret society or whatever.
I tried to infiltrate them when I was a teenager. I joined the teenage girl version. And it was funny. I was
undercover.
Yeah, I tried. And they must have thought I had bladder problems because I was constantly excusing myself. And, I got to go. You may use the restroom. And then I would run around the halls and try different doors, and my heart would be beating really hard. And I kept hoping to find something, And, of course,
you were trying to Nancy Drew that stuff, weren't you? You were trying to figure it out.
I was. And I remember we had to memorize these long poems about, I remember one time I was of the rainbow. You would be a different color of the rainbow. One time I was white, the virgin color. And I remember being really embarrassed, I have to say the word virgin in front of this room, and just, I don't know, it was embarrassed, because I was a little kid, but I was like, well, the things I do for my undercover career. And, of course, I never found out really anything. Although, I did ask them about the Masonic G at the time, and I have a post on my blog if anyone wants to go there. I did blog a little bit about this, about how they just told me it stands for God, but it actually stands for three different things. Let's see what it is if I can remember. It's gnosis, which starts with a G. Remember, Gyro? We were talking about that.
Yeah. Forget the G's there.
It's another Greek word. It's a Greek thing. I never thought about that until now. Yeah, just so funny. Yeah, so which stands for knowledge. Gnosis. It stands for generation. That's another reason. You'll see that star with the G in front of it. So it stands for gnosis, for knowledge. G is for generation, and then grand architect is the third thing it stands for, and the grand architect, that's how it refers to God. So they were kind of telling me part of the answer. They weren't telling me the whole thing. But there's just so much to it. Yeah, and I think I'm still kind of looking into the whole Masonic handshake thing, because you see a lot of graves where they have handshakes, like they're showing two hands shaking in an embrace on them. And,
right.
I think that's got to be a whole chapter on that, because I found there's a one type of handshake. You have to look at how the fingers are going and who's holding who. If one set of fingers, the woman, generally speaking, always the one on the left, and the man will be on the right if they're a partnership, if they're a marriage, because a lot of times it's the marital handshake, as they call it. And so, but you can tell who died first by whose hand looks like it's actively grabbing the other one, and then the other certain fingers will look kind of limp, so they're the ones being pulled up to heaven. And then,
whoa.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And then there's another thing with hands, like when you see it pointing up with a finger, that's like, hey, gone to heaven, But when you see it pointing down, it doesn't mean, hey, went to hell.
Hey, I think he went to hell.
Yeah, that actually just means they died abruptly. So maybe they just had an aneurysm and just suddenly died, or they had an accident, or so it can.
Well, maybe they should put it neutral. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Like the hangman.
Let's not point downward. I mean, that's kind of, if upward is going up, let's try to go neutral. If it was something the guy had nothing to do with, it's just like something that, oops, it happened.
Yeah. I do like it. Yeah, I know. I do like it though when I see a bundle of wheat on someone's grave, because that means they lived to a ripe old age. It's like, oh, hey, that's kind of nice to see, So it's not all depressing, although sometimes it's like, what?
Yeah, there are some that, and not even just the symbolisms, but the ones of the older ones that you can barely read sometimes.
Yeah.
With the lamb on top of it. That's a baby. Yeah. And it just, God, it just breaks my heart. And I'm like, these are the ones that hurt me the worst. And, that'll kind of lead me into the part where you and I have something a little bit in common as far as, for one, not just the paranormal, and radio shows, but children, spirits, and even living children are attracted to us like a magnet for some reason.
Yeah, I feel like the Pied Piper sometimes.
And it's like, we go around our friends that can actually see them and feel them and can communicate with them, and they're like, you brought a busload of kiddos with you. There's a kid following you right now, right? And I'm like, well, no, I didn't.
I know. I'm always like, what? Really?
Yeah. I can normally feel them, but sometimes lately I've been